Guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about the top 3 reasons why you should not pursue a career in medical billing and coding. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys. So maybe since this is 2024, you're thinking about pursuing the medical billing and coding career field. And you're wondering, should I or shouldn't I? And a lot of times when people start to go to these schools to check out these programs, for medical billing and coding, they're starting to get excited because part of the top 3 reasons, right? They're getting excited because these recruiters or the people who are trying to sell the program are telling them all these things. And they're thinking that, well, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds fantastic. And then they get into it and they say, oh, wait a second, this isn't what I thought. So if you're doing your research right now and you come across this video, great. But here's the other thing that I will say is this. A lot of people accuse me of being discouraging whenever I'm making this type of video. I've done this type of video before. It has done very well. A lot of views on it. But here's the thing. I want y'all to understand this. I have been a medical coder since 2008. So for the better part of my working career as an adult, I have been in this career field. I discovered in 2014 that I love it. So think about that. Since 2008 and 2014, in all that time, I was learning and developing as a coder, and then I fell in love with it in 2014. A lot of people tell me that they fall in love with it. Oh, I'm so in love with it. I can't wait to get started with it. You have no idea what you're about to get into. So that's why I want to talk about these things today, because these 3 points that I'm going to bring up today are specifically the things that the recruiters for the schools or the people that are trying to sell a program, these 3 things are the things that they bring up a lot, trying to sell the field, because they need people to sign up for these programs. Because if they told them all of the hard work and everything that goes into learning it, a lot of people wouldn't sign up for it because it is very difficult. It is not an easy field to learn. It's not an easy field to get into, okay? But don't be discouraged, because it is, once you get in it and once you start learning it, it is fun. It is the most challenging career that you'll ever have. It will keep you on your toes. And if you really let yourself fall into it, you'll learn everything. And it won't just be about the career field. You will also professionally develop yourself. And there will be a lot of things that you will learn, and it will give you the opportunity, so many opportunities that you never even thought of if you give it the chance. But here's the thing, guys. It's not an easy road, but it is a rewarding road. I want you guys to know that, okay? And again, I'm not trying to discourage you. Whether you decide to listen to me or not, or take my advice, don't take my advice, is entirely up to you. And I hope you find what you're looking for in your working life, because I don't have to remind people that life is not a dress rehearsal, okay? You only get one rodeo, and that's it. So whatever you choose to do with your career, and whether you are just out of high school or whether you're just retired and you say, well, I want to go back to work because I'm not just quite ready to retire just yet, and I want to pursue something like this. Either way, guys, people have done it. They've been successful at it. They've discovered something that was for them, and they enjoy it. So if you decide to go down this path, just know that it is going to take some work, all right? But it is not impossible, and it doesn't matter your educational background, okay? This field only requires you to get certified in medical coding to have a high school diploma or a GED. So what does that say, all right? But here's the thing. The number 1 reason why you should not pursue medical billing and coding, all right? And I'm just telling you all these things because I want y'all to think about this. And if you're pursuing this career field because of these, you might want to think about it again, okay? Somebody told you that it's really easy, that the electronic medical record is the one that's doing all the coding, or the provider is selecting the codes, and all you have to do is push them on through, and that's it. It is the easiest desk job you'll ever have. Wrong. Medical billers and coders have to understand how to critically think when they're looking at a document. And when you're looking at a document, you have to be able to abstract, which means, okay, you're looking at these things, and you can pull out diagnoses, you can spot procedures and things like that. These things come with time and practice, obviously. But when you are working through these encounters, you're looking and you're checking to make sure that everything and all of the codes that are selected, diagnosis codes, procedure codes, modifiers, and everything else, that they're all supported based on the documentation. Now, you will learn this going through the school, or if you're studying on your own, you will learn it, okay? So don't panic even before you start, but don't fall into that trap thinking that it's easy, because it's not. And I will tell you that it's not. And you have to know medical terminology, and you have to know anatomy, and you have to understand pathophysiology, which is the disease process, right? You have to understand all of these things so that the documentation can make sense. Doctors who have been to school for years and who have had years to amass all of this knowledge are the ones that are writing this documentation. You have to be able to read it and understand it. And if you don't understand some of those words, if you don't understand what they're trying to say, then you need to look things up. You need to get a dictionary, a medical dictionary, and look up some of these words, or, Google some of these conditions. So that way you can find out, more about what you're reading. And yes, we do have a production standard as medical coders. No one expects you to be flying through encounters when you very first start. But at the same time, just know that you are responsible for coding correctly. And if they say, well, no, the doctor selects it and those are the codes that we always use. If the documentation does not support those codes, you cannot pick that up. And it is part of our ethical standards as well. AHIMA has the standards of ethical coding that every medical coder, regardless of credential status, will adhere to, because these are the rules. These are what makes it, what makes our field ethical, and that everything that we are selecting is correct, because what we select as codes has an impact on how many people in an area are accounted for with certain conditions and things like that. And of course, it counts for the billing side of the house as well. All of these things add up. So being as accurate as you possibly can it goes a long way. If you see in the documentation that the documentation is lacking and you're not able to select an appropriate, or not appropriate, but a specific diagnosis, then you have to query, okay? You have to ask them, okay, can you clarify which side is this condition on? Is it the right or the left? If that's what it calls for. But you have to be able to speak to these providers, and some of these providers can be very intimidating. Again, I don't say this to scare you. I say it to prepare you. And if you say, well, Blue, I'm a very nervous person and I'm very shy. I'm nervous and I'm shy as well. But when I got into this field, I also learned that communicating with these providers was going to be critical for the success of, these notes and everything else. So I had to learn. And you will learn too if you decide to pursue this. So that's something that you have to understand when you're getting into this field. It is not easy, and you will have to work with providers who will not want to respond to queries, who will not understand why you're questioning them. They'll feel questioned, but then that's when you have to learn really good communication skills so that they don't feel this way, okay? So that they will work with you, and so that everything will become easier with time, because again, you're querying appropriately, and the documentation is getting better and more improved, and it's easily understood for anybody who's looking at it, okay? And that's your job as a medical coder. So don't believe people when they say that, oh yeah, the codes are already selected. Sometimes they are selected, and 90% of the time they are wrong, okay? Or some way, it's wrong, okay? And you have to go in and change, or have to go in and correct. So that's the thing that you have to know right off the bat. So that's number one. Number two, the number two reason to not pursue medical billing and coding is that you want to travel. A lot of people, especially the brand new ones, I want to work remotely, and I want to travel, and I want to, go around here and go to these parks, and I want to just get my laptop out and go to the beach and, be able to do all these things. No. Because when it comes to connecting to the electronic health record or electronic medical record, you have to be in a secure area. You have to be able to protect this protected health information. There are laws that protect this information, okay? Guys, there's HIPAA, all right? You don't want to get in trouble for a HIPAA violation. If somebody sees your computer screen who is not in a need to know, and it has all this patient information up, you just committed a HIPAA violation. So that's something that you have to understand. These violations have serious consequences. And if you are thinking that, oh yes, well I heard so and so, they travel, they do this, and it doesn't mean that you need to do it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you have to connect securely to the internet. Yes, oh yes, there's a VPN and there's this and there's that. But guys, there have been people that have said, okay, well, I don't want to put in my leave, so I want to go to Mexico and I want to go on vacation there. A lady went to a resort in Mexico and she thought she was going to take her laptop willy-nilly, and she went down there and she's trying to work, and all of a sudden she gets a call from the IT department saying, where are you? And she's like, oh, I'm at home, I'm doing my work. No, we see that you're connected to the Wi-Fi at this resort hotel in Mexico. You have our equipment in another country. We need you to bring it back, and you need to get off the internet, because of the simple fact that it puts records at risk. It's you're making the whole system vulnerable when you try to do things like that. And so that's something that you have to understand. This is not meant to travel around in. You have to be in a secure place. Even when you're working remotely, your computer screens have to be set up in a specific way, meaning that you can't just be in your living room with your computer monitors facing the whole room. You have to turn your monitors to face a wall so that nobody can walk up behind you and look over your shoulder and see what you're doing. And it doesn't matter if you say, well, these are my kids, and it doesn't matter. It does matter. Anybody who is not in a need to know that sees your computer screen with other people's private health information on it is a HIPAA violation. So that's something that you have to understand. It's not as glamorous and easy peasy as people try to make it out to be. And if they tell you, oh yeah, you can stay at home and you can watch your kids and you can do all of these things, you have to treat working remotely like you're going to the office, meaning that you can't be interrupted 10 or 20 times a day because you have to stop, get your kids fed, and come back and work. And oh yeah, the kids got to go to school, so you got to go run them to school real quick. So I'm just going to take I'm going to lock my computer for a minute, and then I'm going to be right back. Well, guess what? You've left while you're supposed to be working. And they have ways of monitoring people and how much production they're doing based on the amount of the mouse is moving and things like that. And yeah, maybe you did get a mouse mover and the mouse is moving around and things like that, so it doesn't look like you're gone. But guess what? If you're in that record, and say that record is for an appendectomy should take you just a few minutes to be in and out. If you're gone for an hour, you betcha they're going to ask you, why were you gone? Why were you in this record for 1 hour? What is the problem? Okay. And I also don't recommend remote medical coding for brand new medical coders, because you need to be around other medical coders, especially in the beginning, because the book coding and real world coding are two different things. You will have questions when you get out in the real world, because these scenarios will not look like the book. The book is going to have everything that it needs to have. It's going to be very neatly all put into one package. It's going to be there, and it's going to be, oh, okay, this is great. But when you get in the real world and you get a provider who decides they don't want to document today, you're going to get the bare minimum. And you have to really kind of think about what are they trying to say here, and what happened here, and what is this, and what are they doing here. Then you're going to have to query if you need to query, or you're going to have to try to code it the best way that you can. It really all depends on the documentation. But again, it's going to look a lot different from the book. And it's not going to be an easy thing to learn the electronic medical record when you're brand new, especially if you don't have any background in medical to begin with. So if that's really what you're chasing, that you want to stay at home because you think it's the greatest thing in the world, or you want to take a laptop and go travel the world and do medical coding, you can't do this, guys. You can't. Not in the beginning, okay? Now, after a while, and you have experience and you want to work at home, that's great. But again, when you are brand new, it doesn't matter the reason. It does not matter the reason. You need to have time to spend with other coders so they can mentor you, so they can show you the ropes, so that learning the electronic medical record and how to navigate in it is not going to be so hard. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible, because obviously when we were in the pandemic, there was a lot of people that didn't have experience that had to work at home, and they're still working at home today. And they say, well, Blue, I've always worked at home and I've been just fine. I guarantee you there's a lot of things they could still probably be learning, but they don't know, right? They don't know because they've never been around other medical coders. They've never been in a facility to work with providers to know what that's like. They don't know what they're missing out on, right? So that's just something that you should know when it comes to this. And that's a big selling point for a lot of these schools, because they want to appeal to stay-at-home mothers or parents, fathers that stay at home and raise the kids. Just know that this industry is mostly women, mostly women who have children themselves. So if you think that they're not going to understand if you have a small child at home, that you have to go to the daycare to go pick them up, they will understand, because they've been through it a lot of times themselves, because again, majority are mothers. Not all, but majority are. So that's something that you need to know. And so don't just think that it's going to be the easiest thing, because really when you have a lot of interruptions and you're trying to concentrate on what you're doing, it can impact your workload, it can impact your productivity, and that's not something that you want. It can impact your accuracy, and you really don't want that, because you don't want to be the person who's the reason that there's a rejected claim because you didn't code properly. So that's something that I hope that you take that into consideration when you are pursuing this or trying to decide if you want to pursue this. If you're doing it because you immediately want to work at home, really reconsider that, or know that it would be best for you to start at some place. Even if you had a month training, I tell people, I would feel better if new people at least had a month training on site. So that way when they go home, they're not going to be so lost, okay? Because a lot of times these organizations will send you home with a computer and monitors to set you up and things like that, so you're not having to use your own equipment, okay? A lot of companies are like that. So that's something that you should know. It's a great benefit, but again, you want to make sure that if you are working at home, that you are treating it like you're going to the office, and that you are protecting the information at all times, and you're not just letting anybody willy-nilly look at your computer screen, okay? Because you wouldn't want your private health information being looked at by somebody else, would you? I'm just saying. So with that said, the number 3 reason, which is the one that causes the most controversy with a lot of people, especially with me on this channel, because here's the thing, guys. You are pursuing medical billing and coding because of the money. Now, here's the thing, guys. That is the number 1 reason, even though it's number 3, it is the number 1 reason why you should not pursue this career field. And the reason that I say this is because people who get into this career field based on the money, because they see the money, and they're like, oh yeah, they pay really well. I want to get this. I want to pursue this. And then they get into it, and then they didn't start out as high as they thought because the school gave them a ridiculously high amount. And so then they start complaining and saying, oh, well, I'm not getting paid my worth and blah, blah, blah. When in actuality, they're getting paid quite well for somebody who just started and doesn't have experience. So if you think that you're going to start off on some really high number, some ridiculously high number, oh, well, I used to be a nurse and I used to be this, I used to be that. You're not a nurse, and this is not nursing, okay? So that's the thing. When it comes to medical coding, you have to understand that you're going to work your way up, all right? And you're going to work your way up, and as you gain more knowledge, you will be able to cash in on that knowledge, and you will be able to be paid for it, because medical coders do get paid very well. But don't expect that right out of the gate. That's something that a lot of people, especially on my channel, they try to get me to say, what do medical coders start out at? Every place in the United States starts medical coders off at a different salary, different rate, okay? And then it depends, is this a state facility? Is this a commercial privately owned facility? Is this a government facility? There's a lot of other factors that go into what a medical coder starts out at. Is this a private doctor's office? Now, I'll tell y'all, the private doctor's offices are not going to pay you what you think that you should be paid, because a lot of times it's the spouse that is going to be running the billing side and all of this stuff. 90% of the time, it is the spouse that is doing it. So trust me, you're not gonna start off like this really high salary like you think in a private doctor's office, because they have overhead that they got to be able to pay attention to and that kind of thing. So that's just something that you should know right off the bat. But here's the other thing. People who get into this to chase the money are never happy. They are never happy because they are fixated on the wrong thing. And when you are fixated on money, you're never going to be satisfied with what you're getting, because you always want to get more. Meanwhile, you're not focusing on what you should be focused on, which is building your knowledge. Because again, we have to know what doctors know while never having gone to medical school. They get 10 to 15 years to be a doctor, right? Or to be a medical professional in some way, right? They get 10 to 15 years to do this. Whereas we as medical coders get 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months. I tell y'all this. Some of y'all get into these really fast 2-month programs, 4-month programs, 6-month programs, thinking that's enough time to learn medical billing and coding, and it's not. It's a joke, really, is what it is. To try to learn it that fast is just ridiculous. It's setting you up to fail, okay? You should be studying for 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months. You know, that's a good enough time to learn medical billing and coding during that amount of time. But if you try to squeeze it into even less time, I hope it's because you already have experience, so you already know medical terminology and anatomy. Because if it's anything less than that, guys, no, it's just too much. And it's a lot, you're going to burn yourself out. I don't want people to get into this and just burn themselves out trying to get through the school so fast because they want to get to this money. The money is there and it will be there. You just have to go through at a normal pace, again, 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months to learn it. And then when you're out there and you're trying to find your first job and you find somebody who has a reasonable starting rate, then you can build from there. I just talked about this, that people who move jobs every 2 years are the ones that get paid, because those are the ones that can ask for that 10% bump or the 20% bump, depending on their experience. Now, some people don't want to have to move jobs every 2 years, and some people don't have a problem with it. But if you are working in a place that is not giving you a raise, and you're learning and you're doing more and you're having more responsibility and you're not getting compensated for it, do you think that's fair? Now, the employer is going to say, oh yeah, that's fair for us because, you know, we get you to do all these things and we don't have to pay you and you're going to stay. And do you think that that's right? No, that's not right. But these are employers and they're going to try to keep their overhead low so that way they can make more profit. And that's something that you have to consider. And as you are building your knowledge, then yes, of course, you can ask for more money because you deserve it. You deserve, because you've learned all these things. You've taught yourself to, you know, communicate effectively and communicate well, that you've been able to train providers and train other medical coders and all these things when you've had the time in. Again, that is something that you can leverage for more money. But if you are just doing things because you think you're entitled to it, but you don't want to put in the time to learn it, do you really deserve it? Ask yourself that question. Do you deserve it? And be honest. I think that you would say no, right? Especially if you're not trying to learn. Because think about how a business cannot run by just paying all these employees this high amount of salary and not seeing a return from that person's production. So that's something that you have to think about. You know, if you are submitting claims that are getting rejected because of incorrect coding, think about that. That facility is not making money and you're expecting to get this really high salary, and oh yes, you want a salary bump because you think you deserve it. Earn it. That's what I'm saying. So that's what you have to know when you're pursuing this career field. Now, those of you who are not focused on the money, you'll see the money come to you and it'll be natural. It'll be organic and it'll be in ways that you didn't even think of. Okay. But it'll be so awesome because then you'll be in a career that you really love, that you're enjoying, and you're getting paid for it. And what is the saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I feel that way. I have felt that way since 2014. That, with everything that I know and everything that I'm still learning, being all these years in, that's the thing that's really wonderful. And I really love what I do. And I hope that if you are considering this career field, that you do your research, that you don't get discouraged based on what I just said. I am saying all of these things to open your eyes to the reality of the situation. That it's not such a great thing if you work at home immediately because you're going to feel lost, right? It's not such a great thing if you think that, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to travel around and do all these things willy-nilly. No, you have to be protecting patient information at all times. And of course, if you are thinking that it's so easy that you're going to push through, you are responsible for everything that's being submitted, for all those codes that are being submitted. That's your name that's attached to those codes. It's a provider's documentation, but it's your name that's on those codes. So you have to be able to explain why did you choose those codes. Okay, so that's just something that you have to know. All right. And again, if you are thinking that you want to pursue this because you want to make all of this money, you have to understand that you have to earn that money, that money is not going to come easily to you. And if you're chasing the money, you will never be satisfied. I'm just saying. So with that said, I wish you the best on your journey if you do decide to pursue this. I have over 1,100, probably 1,200 videos on my channel about this career field and all the things that go into it, and how wonderful it is. But at the same time, it is a labor of love, and you do have to learn, and you do have to always accept that, because that's just the reality of what this is. I'm just saying. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.